Your spending problem isn't your income. It's that you've never been taught what not to buy. You've tried budgets, you've tried tracking apps, you've cut back on coffee, canceled a subscription, felt good for exactly 1 week, and then somehow the money still disappears. Sound familiar? In the West, we treat restraint like punishment, something you endure until you can afford to stop. But in Japan, restraint isn't a punishment at all. It's a skill, a quiet, deliberate discipline passed down for centuries, not about having less, but about wanting less of the wrong things. And once you see spending this way, you can't unsee it, because this isn't a list about frugality, it's a list about identity, about the 10 things Japanese culture has quietly refused to buy for generations, and why the rest of the world is only now catching up. Now, before we get into it, this list is not what you think. It isn't about coupons. It isn't about saying no to yourself at every turn. Most people in the West never realize this, but real restraint has nothing to do with deprivation. It has everything to do with respect for your money, your time, and the life you're actually trying to build. 10 things. That's what we're covering today. Some will feel obvious the moment you hear them. Number 4 might sting a little because you probably bought one this month. Number 10 will change how you see every purchase that came before it. But number 7, stay until we get there, because it's the one almost nobody thinks of as spending at all, and yet it's quietly draining more people than anything else on this list. Let's start with the first thing Japan simply refuses to buy. Number 1, things bought just in case. You know the drawer, the one stuffed with cables you don't recognize, spare buttons, chargers for phones you no longer own. You bought most of it just in case you needed it someday, just in case it came in handy. But it never really does it? In Japan, there's a different way of seeing this. Every object you own isn't just a possession, it's a future obligation, something you'll eventually have to store, clean, move, or throw away. And someone, someday, has to deal with it. Often that someone is you. Sometimes it's the people you leave behind. This is the heart of Danshari, a practice built from 3 ideas: refusing what you don't need, discarding what no longer serves you, and separating yourself from the attachment to things. It isn't about owning nothing. It's about asking before every purchase whether this object earns its place in your life. Because clutter isn't just mess, it's unfinished decisions piling up in a drawer. You don't need more storage solutions. You need fewer things asking to be stored. And if you thought that one was uncomfortable, wait until we get to the thing people buy just to be seen buying it. Number 2, anything bought to be seen. The logo on the bag, the brand across the chest, the car parked just a little more visibly than it needs to be. In the West, we've built an entire culture around spending as announcement. Buy it, post it, let people know exactly how well you're doing. But here's what nobody talks about. The people in Japan who are actually the most quietly wealthy are often impossible to spot. No logos, no performance, just well-made, understated things that last for years, chosen because they work, not because they're loud. This comes from Wabi-Sabi, the appreciation of beauty in what's imperfect, aged, and unpolished, rather than shiny and new. A worn leather wallet, a simple ceramic cup with one small chip. Nothing here is trying to prove anything to anyone. And that's the real difference. One kind of spending says, "Look at me." The other kind says, "This simply works, and that's enough." You don't need people to notice what you bought. You need to stop needing them to. Which brings us to something even more revealing. What happens when convenience quietly replaces a skill you used to have? Number 3, paying to avoid learning. Meal kits that chop the vegetables for you. Furniture assembled before it even reaches your door. Someone hired to do the small task you could easily learn yourself if you just gave it a little time. In the West, convenience has quietly become the goal, not competence, just speed. In Japan, there's a different kind of pride at work. Even the smallest task deserves care. A shopkeeper wrapping a single item as if it were a gift. A home cook who spends 20 minutes on a dish that could be ordered in 5 minutes flat, simply because doing it yourself matters. This is shokunin, the spirit of the craftsman, the belief that mastery comes from devotion to even the smallest, humblest work. It doesn't mean everyone needs to be an expert, it means nothing is beneath your attention. And this is the part that changes how you see everything else. Every time you pay to skip a skill, you don't just lose money, you lose a small piece of your own capability. You don't need more services doing things for you. You need to remember you're capable of doing them yourself. But what we're about to cover next, most people in the West have never even considered it as a purchase at all. Before we go further, take a moment, just a moment. Think of one thing you bought this month just in case. Maybe you already know what it is. Maybe it's sitting in a drawer right now, still in its packaging. Hold that thought, because it's about to matter more than you think. What we're about to cover next isn't clutter or status or convenience. It's something most people in the West have never even considered a purchase at all. It hides in plain sight, disguised as normal life, and almost everyone does it without a second thought. And once you see it clearly, you won't be able to look at your own habits the same way again. Let's get into it. Number 4, anything disposable. Paper plates for a Tuesday dinner, plastic razors thrown out after one use, cheap umbrellas bought in a rainstorm then left behind in a bin a week later. In the West, disposable has become the default. Buy it, use it once, forget it exists. In Japan, there's a word for the discomfort this creates, Mottainai, a deep sense of regret over waste, a feeling that something still had use left in it when it was thrown away. It isn't guilt, exactly. It's closer to respect, the sense that every object deserves to be used fully before it's let go. You've been living with this tension for years, even if you never named it. That small flinch when you toss something that still works. Japan didn't ignore that feeling. It built an entire philosophy around honoring it. This is the one idea that makes almost everything else on this list make sense, because disposable culture doesn't just waste objects. It quietly teaches you that nothing is worth caring for. You don't need everything to last forever. You need to stop assuming nothing is worth mending. And that idea, mending instead of replacing, is about to show up somewhere you'd never expect: your closet. Number 5, fast fashion. New season, new trends, a closet that turns over every few months. You buy something because it's suddenly everywhere, wear it a handful of times, and then it sits there, already out of style before it even wears out. Most people in the West never realize how much money quietly leaks out through this cycle. In Japan, there's an older tradition that stands in direct contrast: boro, cloth that's been patched, stitched, and mended so many times that the repairs become part of the garment itself. Visible seams, layered fabric, nothing hidden, nothing disguised. And this is the important part. In boro, a repaired garment isn't something to be ashamed of, it's something to be proud of. The patches tell a story. This was worth keeping, worth fixing, worth years instead of weeks. Compare that to a closet full of trends already forgotten. One says, "I used it until it earned its wear." The other says, "I never gave anything the chance to." You don't need a closet that changes every season. You need clothes patient enough to change with you. Which brings us to something even closer to home: what actually ends up on your plate. Number 6, processed food bought to save time. The frozen dinner eaten standing at the counter, the drive-through meal grabbed between errands. It feels efficient in the moment, one less thing to think about, one less thing to do. But most of the time, it isn't really about saving minutes. It's about avoiding the effort of caring for yourself. In Japan, cooking is approached very differently. It isn't treated as a chore to rush through. It's treated as a daily ritual, small, repeated, quietly meaningful. This comes from washuko, the idea of harmony in food, where balance, care, and attention matter as much as the meal itself. A simple bowl of rice, a few vegetables, arranged with intention rather than convenience. Nothing extravagant, just cooked with presence. And this is the part that changes how you see everything else. A meal made with 5 extra minutes of care doesn't just taste different, it tells you something different about how much you're worth taking care of. You don't need faster meals. You need meals that remind you you're worth the time. But the next thing on this list is the one almost nobody sees coming, and it might be the most expensive habit on this entire list. Number 7, the one we promised you. Right now, there's a good chance you're paying for something you forgot you even subscribed to. A streaming service you barely open. An app that auto-plays the next thing before you've even finished the last. 90% of people are spending money on this every single month, and most never stop to ask what it's actually buying them. Because it isn't entertainment. Not really. It's numbness. A way to fill every quiet moment before it has the chance to feel uncomfortable. Japan has a concept that stands in direct opposition to this, ma. It refers to negative space, the deliberate pause between things, the value of emptiness and silence rather than constant filling. A gap in a conversation, a quiet room with nothing playing in the background. In Japanese design, in music, even in daily life, that empty space isn't a problem to solve. It's considered essential. And this is the part that changes how you see everything else on this list. Every other item was about objects. This one is about attention, the most valuable thing you own, spent 30 seconds at a time on things designed to make sure you never sit with silence. You don't need another subscription to fill the quiet. You need to find out what the quiet has been trying to tell you. And once you can sit in that silence, the next item on this list becomes almost obvious. Number 8, experiences bought for proof. The trip planned around the photo you'll take there. The bucket list moment, chosen partly because of how it will look once it's shared. In the West, even experiences have started to carry a quiet expectation that they need an audience to count. Japan holds a different idea entirely. Ichigo ichie. The understanding that this one meeting, this one moment, will never happen again in exactly this way. Not with these people, this light, this feeling. Because it's unrepeatable, it doesn't need proof. It only needs your full attention while it's happening. Think about that for a second. An experience witnessed only by you can still be worth everything. It doesn't lose value because no one else saw it. This is the part most people miss. When an experience is bought for the photo, some part of you is already living outside the moment, watching it from the outside before it's even finished. When it's lived for itself, you're actually there for it. You don't need proof that something happened. You need to have actually been present when it did. Now, save the last two for last, because together, they change how you see every dollar you've spent before this point. Before we move on, a small warning. Save the last two for last. Not because they're the biggest purchases or the most expensive mistakes, because together they change how you see every dollar you've spent before this point. Most people never realize this connects until it's already too late to unsee it. One is about the people in your life. The other is about time itself. Put them side by side, and the first 8 items on this list start to look like small pieces of a much bigger pattern. Let's finish this. Number 9, shortcuts that cost a relationship. The expensive gift bought instead of a phone call you've been avoiding. The favor called in instead of the honest conversation you owe someone. In the West, it's easy to let money quietly stand in for effort, a transaction instead of time, a payment instead of presence. In Japan, relationships are protected by something deeper than money. Wa, the idea of harmony, of preserving trust and balance between people above almost everything else. A gift given there isn't meant to cover for absence. It's meant to reflect care that's already present, built through time, attention, and small, consistent gestures. And this is what nobody talks about. When you use money to skip the harder, slower work of showing up for someone, you're not actually saving anything. You're just delaying a debt that isn't financial at all. Trust doesn't come from what you buy someone. It comes from what you show up for, again and again without being asked. You don't need a bigger gesture to make up for your absence. You need to stop being absent in the first place. Which brings us to the very last thing on this list, the one that quietly explains every other item you've just heard. Number 10. The quietest one on this list, and the one that ties every other item together. Overnight shipping, instead of waiting 3 days. Skipping the line, skipping the process, paying extra just to avoid a little discomfort or a little patience. In the West, faster has quietly become the same thing as better, even when there was nothing wrong with slower in the first place. Japan offers a different path, one built on Kaizen, the practice of small, patient improvement, repeated daily, without needing to rush the outcome. Not a leap, not a shortcut, just one small step, taken consistently, trusted to add up over time. And if you're watching this, you already know what I mean. Somewhere in your life, you've paid to skip a weight that wasn't actually hurting you. You just couldn't sit with it. This is the part that changes how you see everything else on this list. Every item before this one was really about the same lesson, that most of what we buy is an attempt to avoid something uncomfortable, rather than an attempt to build something lasting. You don't need a faster life. You need one you're willing to build slowly. Your spending problem was never your income. It's that no one ever taught you what not to buy. You don't need a bigger income. You need a shorter list of things worth buying at all. If any of this landed, share it with someone who might need to hear it. And subscribe, because every week we go a little deeper into the quiet wisdom Japan has been living for centuries.